What is going on, my friends, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on a Subaru. You guessed it. So I was scouring Facebook Marketplace the other day, and I came across an intercooler setup for this car. It came off of a 2008, and this is a 2007. Not a whole ton difference between engine bays and, wheelbases and all that stuff. So I went ahead and picked it up. From what I could find, it is pretty much a no-name generic system, but I think it's going to work fine for what we need to do right now until we can gather some funds and get a nice ETS kit. But here is the intercooler in question. It's a nice front mount. It's crooked right now because it's just sitting on uneven jack stands, but it did come with a pretty janky piping kit. I think this piping kit was put together pretty hodgepodge and kind of just made to work on the other one, so it seems more like a budget setup, but it's going to work for what we need to do right now. So while we're waiting on the coupler for the Killer Bee turbo inlet, we can go ahead and start mocking this up and making some brackets and trying to get this guy to work for what we need to do. This is the piping kit in question. You can kind of tell, just kind of hodgepodge together. They say it was Cerakoted, but it's like, it looks like they kind of just rattle canned it. We're going to re-Cerakote all of this stuff once we get everything buttoned up where it needs to be. We're going to be running a vent to atmosphere tile blowout valve, and this is a legit name brand tile valve, so that's good. That is a 50mm BOV. But this kit, what I bought off of some guy on Marketplace, I got it for 400 bucks, and it's going to work for what we need to do. It came with a bunch of couplers. Obviously, it came with the intercooler core. It came with this pipe here, and then this pipe that goes from the turbo into that one. It also came with coming out this side. And then this is what goes into the intake and out the intercooler down there. So it is a little dinged up and dented. I'm sure I can straighten that back out. And then we need to get everything perfectly Cerakoted. But the main focus for today is getting this intercooler mounted securely so that we can go ahead and get all these pipings put in where they need to be exactly. So we have everything mocked up, and then we can go ahead and pull everything off and re-Cerakote it so that we're not messing anything up trying to test fit. Here's my plan, or my thought at least. So you have these blocks up here. I'm sure I can find some bolts to thread into there. And I think I'm going to mount it to this hole right back in there. That's a threaded hole, and there's the same one on this side. So I think if we take a piece of aluminum from here and bend it to be able to fit up in there, that should be a decent mounting point down there. And if you look underneath, it already has brackets that I have the jack stand sitting on. The brackets have a hole in them, and they're going to go down into, I'm going to drill a hole in the bottom of this subframe so that we can riv nut into that subframe and then thread some bolts through there. You can see it better on this side. What I need to do before we can get this mocked up perfectly is down here on the subframe, it kind of makes a loop out and back in. So I want to get that guy bent in and cut to where we have plenty of room for this intercooler to sit. Alright, so here's what I came up with. I did one mount. I'm going to set the camera up and do the other mount so you can kind of see what I'm doing. But pretty much just took a straight piece of aluminum, one of these guys down here. I measured the distance from here to back here, and then from where that stops up. Cut my piece, it was about 8 inches, and then bent it at a 90 degree, and then pretty much bent it that way at a 45 to be able to get in here. It's sturdy on this side, and then we're going to get this one in from here to right back in here. There's another bolt hole. So let's get that one measured up. I'll set the camera up, I'll show you how I cut this guy, bend it, and get it mounted up here. Alright, so that's pretty much what I came up with. And this one here, this was the first one I made. It bolts into the core support and then into the intercooler. This one bolts from the intercooler back into the core support as well. And I'm not the best at fabricating anything, but it's pretty solid, and there's 2 more mounts on the bottom that we're going to have to tackle tomorrow, because I have to go get a riv nut gun to be able to get those brackets on the bottom bolted into the subframe and the core support and all that. So once we get a riv nut, we can drill the holes, put the riv nut in, and it'll be secured on the bottom, because for right now it's a little floppy on the bottom. We just have to wait for the riv nut to get that bolted on the core support. Other than that, it's pretty solid. So that's kind of where I'm at here. So from here, let's go ahead and try and figure out some of this piping and see how that's going to mount into the actual engine bay. So as far as I know, this one goes 90-degree coupler off the turbo right into this area here. And then we got this guy coming from the intercooler side up into the fender well right out here. And then whatever else I noticed, we have this guy here that goes into the intercooler, and this one hits the windshield washer reservoir. So I think, well, I know that we're gonna have to pull out the windshield washer reservoir, and we're gonna have to find a relocation kit to be able to maintain our windshield washer fluid. So let's get this windshield washer reservoir out. And out comes the reservoir. We're not going to need the washer fluid right now, so we can go ahead and pour this into the truck. But here's where I'm confused. I think this is supposed to go over this AC line. This AC line isn't super flimsy. I think it's going to go under it. So we're going to put it under. Alright, so that's how it's going to run. It's going to run 90 degree out of the turbo through this pipe, 90 degree here, into this one that goes into the intercooler, through the intercooler, out this one, 90 degree here, then back up into the intake. So I did just put on order a 2.75 to 2.5 extended coupler for this one, so we have a little more wiggle room. And then I also put on that 90 degree coupler and that 90 degree coupler on order, so they should be here tomorrow. So we should be able to pick up this and get this all buttoned up tomorrow. There's only 2 more things I'm waiting on that I ordered because I wanted to do this differently. So I don't like these 90 degree fittings coming out of here. I'm going to do 180 degree fittings going back so that we can negate having anything, any fuel system stuff up here or under the manifold. So we can go back this way, meet up with the Y, and same thing on this fuel rail, do a 180 degree coupler that way, so we can bring it back, connect to the Y, and then connect to the feed. And the other thing I'm waiting on is the coupler for the turbo. Once all the couplers and those 2 fittings come in, we can remake those 2 fuel lines, route everything back, connect everything properly, and then get the intake set up to the intake elbow. And from there, we're pretty much done. Then it's accessories, plumbing wastegate, hooking in your fuel line, battery, and then priming our fuel system. And we should be good to go. It is the next morning, and we got our couplers in. And we got pretty much everything that we need to get this bad boy installed and get it all finished up. As you can see, I got one of these couplers turned upside down. Here's one thing that I'm really not sure about. And some of the videos I've seen is the intercooler pipes go over the AC line right there. But the only way I can make this guy fit is if I went under to be able to make it to there. So I don't know if one of these is bent wrong, but it doesn't seem to be like it's bent out of place. So I'm confused. But nonetheless, let's get the coupler for the throttle body on, and then we need to get the 90-degree on here and pushed up through the fender so that we can get this guy stuck into that 90-degree. Alright, so you saw me struggling with the cold side piping here. I have a plan. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So it's not fitting, and here's why. See, the pipe comes out, the intake manifold down here. That's where it needs to go, and it's bent over this way, heading out here. So this kit was made to go out this side, but I don't have enough pipe here. So on any other kit, on like an 06 to 07 WRX, you'll see it negates the windshield washer reservoir, which we took out last night, and the intercooler pipe goes down here. This kit came off of 2008, and it's obviously hodgepodge together. So we need to get this pipe either bent to go down to this coupler. As you see, we're about 8 to 9 inches off. 8 inches off. The other thing that we can do here is we can cut this pipe right here and add an intermediate coupler like this, so that we can get a little bit of extra length on this to reach into that 90-degree down there, and also get us to be able to turn it our 8 inches that we need to. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to pull this pipe out. We're going to mark where it needs to go first, pull it out, and I think I'm most likely going to run it underneath the AC line, because my AC line is kind of bent and out of the way right now, and I don't want it rubbing on this metal up here and, you know, breaking open. So I think what we're going to do, like I said, we're going to cut right here so that we can add this coupler in and be able to twist it to be able to get it into the slot right there. And that way we'll have plenty of coverage over our battery as well to still be able to close the hood. Okay, that took some finagling, just because obviously I don't think this is meant for this car, and we made it work though. We made it work. So now, coming out of the turbo, boom, down to the intercooler, out of the intercooler, up into the manifold. And then we have our tile blow-off valve plumbed. Now just a few more lines here and there, rebuild the fuel system. And then once we rebuild that fuel system, we can properly route everything and get our inlet on once that last coupler comes in. And from there we're going to make some sauce, hopefully. Last thing that we need to get done is down here. See those brackets on both sides of the intercooler? Those guys need to get a hole drilled into the core support, and then we need to get a riv nut installed into them. And that should be the end of the intercooler piece, until we have to pull all this back off to repowder coat the brackets, along with a couple other pieces in the engine bay that need to get repowder coated. went down to the world's greatest store of Harbor Freight, and I got a riv nut gun, so we can go ahead and get a riv nut installed in the bottom of these so that we can get some bolts threaded into the bottom. But from here, now we're kind of just waiting on the coupler for the inlet to the turbo, and then from there, fuel system, cooling system, we're done. So I think I'm going to wrap up this video right here. I appreciate all of you sticking around, and hopefully this kind of helped some of you put your front mount on your car. I know it was a DIY, more fabricating than actually, you know, nut and bolt. But with that being said, I'm going to wrap up this video right here. I appreciate all of you guys sticking around. Tune in for the next video. We can knock out the rest of this stuff, and then we'll be on to the first start. With that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya.